Hi, and welcome to Island Math. Today we will be discussing an overview of the BGCSE exam, and we'll be showing you everything that you need to know in order to get the best grade possible. Let's get into it. So, first of all, the general structure. There are three papers. Paper 1, which takes about 1 hour and 30 minutes, and you'll have 20 questions. Paper 2, which has 16 questions that you will do in 2 hours. And paper 3, which has about 13 questions, and you are given 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete. For each successive test, you will have more time on average per question to complete each question. Now let's look at the core versus the extended. Paper 1 and paper 2 are considered the core papers, and paper 3 is the extended paper. You are only required to take paper on 1 and 2. However, it is highly recommended that you take paper 3 since the highest grade possible if you only take the core papers is a C. An excellent performance on all three papers gives you an A, and an average paper 3 performance combined with a decent paper 1 and paper 2 performance will give you a B. Now let's look at the materials needed. You will need a calculator, but only a scientific one, not a graphing one. Because if you bring a graphing calculator to the exam, you'll not be allowed to use it, and subsequently, your grade will suffer. You'll need a pen with blue or black ink. You'll need number 2 pencils. It's not advisable that you use click pencils since these can be difficult in terms of graphing and some of the other functions that you'll need on the exam. You'll need a geometry set, and two options that you can include, I would recommend that you include them, is blank paper and a separate eraser. The blank paper will come in handy if you just want to do some scratch work or you're unsure of where you're going with the question. And the separate eraser is definitely important for, graphing. If you're a person who often takes many attempts when trying to graph certain equations, you will definitely want to have a separate eraser. And finally, a clear Ziploc bag for holding your equipment. I highly recommend this since it will keep everything organized and you wouldn't have to be um, having a lot of your supplies on the ground or inside a desk. Here is an eraser I highly recommend. It's Pentel Polymer Eraser. Um, Here is the recommended geometry set, Helix Oxford. You can't go wrong with this. And thirdly, a Casio calculator. Now, this is a scientific calculator, and this is probably one of the best that you can get for an affordable price. You could get any scientific calculator if you want. It really doesn't matter. However, this is the one I would recommend. Now, tips for the calculator. Your calculator mode should always be DEG. This mode button, if you press this and press 4, you will get DEG. So always make sure that this up here will say DEG, because if you are on radians or some other number here, then your angles and will always be wrong. Any sign that you take of an angle or cosine, your trigonometry questions will be messed up and you'll get a bad grade because of it. So always make sure to keep it on DEG. And for angle measurements, the BGCSE only uses degrees, so also make sure when you're putting in your angles, don't measure anything in radians, always use the degrees. And the shift button here, if you're unfamiliar with the calculator, this button here will allow you to use these other functions that are in orange. So if you wanted to take the inverse sine of a function, you would press shift and then sine on the function. And this will allow you to use many other features with the calculator. Tips for exam day. You'll want to review all your topics a week before the exam and don't cram the night before. You'll want to get enough sleep the week before the exam and the night before. 8 hours, if possible, is definitely the recommended. If you're sleeping for more than that, that's also fine. But you definitely want to get enough sleep so that your mind is clear and you're not tired or anything at the exam. You want to have a full breakfast the morning of the exam, avoiding carbs and sugars. So things like Fruit Loops, cereal, sweet cereals, you'll want to avoid those as they may affect your focus levels. You want to bring a jacket to your exam location, since if there is a very strong air condition inside, you will not want to get too cold. However, if there is an AC, you can always just put the jacket on the back of your seat, so it causes you no harm to bring one. You want to aim to arrive an hour early so that you'll have time to calm down before the exam, walk around, get familiar with the testing site. And if you have a question, always raise your hand before the exam begins so that you can ask whatever you need to be answered. And they will specifically have time before the exam where they're getting everything ready for this. And if something is wrong with your exam booklet or you're just confused, definitely ask while you have the chance. Don't come at the end of the exam with a question, since they will be trying to get everything shut down and putting everything up. Here are some more tips for the exam day. Relax as you're taking these tests. Be serious, but don't stress yourself out too much because this will cause unnecessary mistakes, and you do not want that. You want to be as calm as possible and just treat it as if you're just doing an assignment. Try to take less time on the first questions as they will be easier. Then you will have more time to work on the harder ones. Although in the beginning of this video I gave you like averages for test taking for like the time that you will have per question, you definitely want to try and take less time than this. So like, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes for the first questions, as you'll have extra time to work on those harder questions toward the end. If something is bothering you during the exam, raise your hand so that an administrator will assist you. And of course, you cannot ask for helps with any of the questions or if you forgot something, but you will definitely want to raise your hand and ask for help if you need help. Follow the instructions that the administrators give you. This is one of the most important parts for the exam. If you are doing something before they ask you to do it, then you can get disqualified. So don't open your exam booklet before they tell you. Don't pick up your pens before they tell you. Always follow the instructions that they give you so that there would not be any confusion while you're taking the test. And in addition, for any equations that you will want to have, there are equations in the front of the exam booklet that are provided on each and every exam. So make yourself familiar with those so beforehand so that you will know that you don't have to memorize certain equations, that you can have them right there, because you don't want to have too much in your mind. So if you don't have to memorize something, then you don't want to. So it's definitely a good idea to memorize these. And if you're running out of time and you haven't answered a question, put something down, even if it's just a 1, a 36, a 4, whatever your favorite number is, or whatever you think it could be. Make sure to put it down because you're not penalized for um, random answers or incorrect answers. You'll still get the same 0 if it's incorrect, but there's a slim chance that you can get the extra point. And even if you aren't able to finish a longer question, if you at least put down your working, you'll be able to get some of the points for that question rather than just getting a full 0. Show you're working for every single thing. Many of the points given out per question depend on your working, and writing down these things helps you to avoid mistakes. If you solve a question in your head or something, always still put the working in the working area that they provide you, since this is going to allow you to get full marks and help you avoid partial marks. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next video.